I still remember the first day I walked into the Brennan house. It was a Tuesday morning in September, 3 years ago. The sun was streaming through those floor-to-ceiling windows in the foyer, and Victoria Brennan greeted me at the door with the warmest smile I'd seen in months of job hunting. She wasn't like the other wealthy families in Riverside Estates. You know, the ones who'd barely look at you, who'd hand you a list of demands before you even got your coat off. No, Victoria was different. She shook my hand firmly, looked me right in the eyes, and said, "Jasmine, I'm so glad you're here. We really need someone like you." Someone like me. At 34, I'd been cleaning houses for almost a decade, raising my 2 girls on my own after my ex walked out. I knew what it meant to work hard, to keep your head down, to be grateful for steady income. But the Brennans, they made me feel like I was part of something. Raymond Brennan was a big shot at some pharmaceutical company downtown. The kind of man who wore expensive suits and had his coffee exactly the same way every morning. Black, 2 sugars, in the blue mug with his company logo. He'd always nod at me when he passed through the kitchen, sometimes even asking how my daughters were doing in school. That meant something to me, it really did. But the real joy of that house, the twins. Chloe and Harper were 6 years old when I started, and Lord, they were like night and day. Chloe was all fire and energy. That child never stopped moving, never stopped talking, never stopped asking questions. "Miss Jasmine, why is the sky blue? Miss Jasmine, can you teach me to braid hair like yours? Miss Jasmine, watch me do a cartwheel." She'd come racing into whatever room I was cleaning, her blonde pigtails bouncing, her gap-toothed grin lighting up the whole space. Harper was the quiet one, the thinker. While Chloe was performing cartwheels in the living room, Harper would be curled up in the window seat with a book, her little legs tucked under her, completely absorbed in whatever story she was reading. She had these striking green eyes, so bright and alert, and when she'd look up at you, it felt like she could see right through to your soul. "You're gentle with her," Victoria told me once, about a month into the job. We were in the kitchen, and I'd just spent 20 minutes listening to Harper explain the entire plot of some fairy tale book she'd read 3 times already. "She reminds me of my youngest," I said, folding dish towels. Same quiet way about her, but don't let that fool you. Still waters run deep, my mama always said. Victoria laughed. "That's Harper, exactly. Chloe's the storm, Harper's the calm." And that's how it was, week after week, month after month. I'd show up every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. sharp. I'd clean, do laundry, prep meals, and somewhere in between all that, I'd become woven into the fabric of their lives. The girls would tell me about their school days, while I folded their tiny clothes. Victoria would chat with me about her interior design projects, while I dusted her collection of fancy vases. Even Raymond, always busy and important, would sometimes linger in the kitchen on Friday evenings, asking my opinion on which wine to serve at their dinner parties. "You've got good taste, Jasmine," he'd say, and I'd feel a little flutter of pride. I loved that family, I really did. Harper would leave me little drawings sometimes, stick figures of me and her holding hands, with "Thank you, Miss Jasmine," written in wobbly letters across the top. I kept every single one in a folder at home. Chloe would beg me to play hide and seek during my lunch break, and even though I knew I should be resting my feet, I could never say no to that child's enthusiasm. Victoria trusted me with everything: the alarm code, the spare keys, even the combination to the safe where they kept important documents. "Your family," she'd tell me, and I believed her. Those were good times, simple times. The house always smelled like vanilla candles and fresh flowers. There was always laughter echoing through the halls. The girls' backpacks would be scattered by the door after school, their shoes kicked off carelessly, evidence of happy, carefree children living happy, carefree lives. On Friday afternoons, I'd leave that house feeling lighter than when I'd arrived. Grateful for the paycheck, sure, but more than that, grateful to be part of something beautiful, something real. Looking back now, I wonder how I missed it. How long had the cracks been forming beneath that perfect surface? How many signs had I walked past, too busy scrubbing floors and folding laundry to notice that something dark was growing in the shadows? Because everything changed 2 months ago. And once I saw it, once I really saw what was happening, I couldn't unsee it. The first time I noticed something was off, it was a Monday in September. I let myself in through the side door like always, calling out my usual greeting. "Morning, Brennan family. It's just me." Chloe came bounding down the stairs like a golden retriever puppy, already talking a mile a minute about some project they were doing at school involving volcanoes and baking soda. Normal. Perfectly normal. But Harper didn't come down. "Where's your sister?" I asked Chloe, setting my bag down in the mudroom. Chloe shrugged, already distracted by something on the kitchen counter. "In her room, I think. She's been weird lately." Weird. That word stuck with me. I found Harper upstairs, sitting on her bed in her school uniform, staring at the wall, not reading, not playing, just staring. "Hey, sweet girl," I said softly from the doorway. "You feeling okay?" She turned to look at me, and that's when I saw it. Those bright green eyes that used to sparkle with curiosity and wonder. They looked dim, tired, like someone had turned down the light inside her. "I'm fine, Miss Jasmine," she whispered, but her voice was flat, mechanical. My stomach twisted. I'd raised 2 daughters. I knew the difference between fine and fine. Over the next few weeks, I watched Harper fade like a photograph left too long in the sun. She stopped eating much at breakfast. I'd find her barely touched cereal bowl in the sink, the flakes soggy and bloated. Victoria noticed too, but she brushed it off. "The pediatrician says some kids go through phases with food," she told me one afternoon, not looking up from her laptop. "Raymond thinks she's just being picky." But this wasn't picky. This was a child wasting away. Harper's clothes started hanging off her tiny frame. Those rosy cheeks I'd grown to love turned pale and hollow. She complained about stomach aches constantly, clutching her belly, asking to lie down, missing school days here and there. And the talking, the beautiful, thoughtful conversations we used to have about books and dreams and what she wanted to be when she grew up, gone. Harper barely spoke anymore. When she did, it was one-word answers. Yes, no, okay, fine. Meanwhile, Chloe remained unchanged, a bright, loud, joyful presence bouncing through the house like nothing was wrong. The contrast was startling. 2 identical faces, but one was thriving while the other was disappearing right in front of us. "Is Harper okay?" I asked Victoria again, more firmly this time. I was folding laundry in the main bedroom, and Victoria was sorting through fabric samples for a client. She sighed, clearly irritated by my persistence. Ray says it's just growing pains. You know how kids are, Jasmine. They go through phases. There was that phrase again, growing pains, phases. But I did know how kids were, and this wasn't it. I started paying closer attention, watching, noticing things I'd previously overlooked. Harper flinched when anyone moved too quickly near her. She'd jump at loud noises, her whole body tensing up like she was expecting something bad to happen. She stopped making eye contact with anyone except me, and even then, only briefly. And then there was the bedroom door. One Wednesday, I came upstairs to vacuum and found a brand new lock installed on Harper's door. Not a simple latch, a real lock. The kind you'd put on an exterior door, with a key. Mr. Brennan put that in over the weekend, Victoria mentioned casually when I asked. Harper's been having nightmares. She feels safer with the door locked. A 6-year-old wanting to lock herself in her room at night. That didn't sit right with me. Children who feel safe don't barricade themselves in. They run to their parents when they're scared. They seek comfort, not isolation. But Raymond had encouraged it, installed it himself, even gave Harper her own key on a little chain. Why? I tried talking to Harper directly one afternoon when we were alone. She was sitting at the kitchen table, pushing apple slices around her plate without eating them. Sweet girl, you know you can talk to me about anything, right? I said gently, sitting down beside her. If something's bothering you, if something's making you sad or scared. I'm fine, Miss Jasmine. Her voice was barely a whisper. Daddy says everything's fine. Daddy says. Those 2 words sent ice through my veins, because the way she said it, like she was repeating a script, like she'd been told exactly what to say. That wasn't the voice of a child who felt fine. That was the voice of a child who'd been silenced. And I was starting to understand that maybe the Brennan family wasn't as perfect as I'd thought. Maybe something terrible was happening behind those pristine walls and expensive furniture. Maybe Harper needed someone to see what everyone else was refusing to look at. Chapter 3. Locked doors. Word count 850 words. The lock wasn't the only thing that bothered me. It was how Raymond acted around it. Around Harper. Around the whole situation. I started watching him more carefully after that conversation with Harper, the one where she'd said, Daddy says everything's fine, in that hollow, rehearsed way. And once I started really paying attention, I couldn't stop seeing things that made my skin crawl, like how Raymond would always volunteer to put Harper to bed, every single night. I've got it, honey, he'd tell Victoria, even when she offered. You relax. Harper and I have our routine. Their routine. What kind of routine required a locked door and a father who seemed just a little too eager to be alone with his daughter? I was there one evening, staying late to prepare meals for the week, when I witnessed it myself. Harper was sitting on the couch, her little body curled into the smallest possible space, when Raymond came home from work. There's my special girl, he said, his voice dripping with sweetness that felt wrong somehow. Too much. Too thick. Harper didn't jump up to greet him like Chloe did. She just sat there, frozen, her eyes dropping to the floor. Come give Daddy a hug, Raymond said, loosening his tie. The hesitation was brief, maybe 2 seconds, but I saw it. Harper's whole body tensed before she slowly stood up and walked to him like she was approaching something dangerous. When he wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, she went rigid. Chloe bounced over too, getting her own hug, laughing and chattering about her day. The difference between the two girls was like watching color versus black and white. "Harper, why don't we go check on that project in my office?" Raymond said, his hand resting on her shoulder. His fingers squeezed gently. "Remember? The one we've been working on together?" Harper's face went pale. "Can we do it tomorrow, Daddy?" "I'm tired." "Now, sweetheart, it'll only take a few minutes." His voice was still sweet, but there was steel underneath it, a command disguised as a request. I pretended to focus on chopping vegetables, but I watched them walk down the hallway toward his office. Harper's steps were slow, reluctant. Raymond's hand never left her shoulder, guiding her like she was a prisoner being escorted to a cell. The office door closed with a soft click. My hands were shaking so badly I had to put down the knife. Victoria was upstairs taking a bath, completely oblivious. Chloe was in the living room watching cartoons, her laughter echoing through the house. And somewhere behind that closed office door, Harper was alone with her father. What kind of project required privacy? Required closed doors? Required a 6-year-old who clearly didn't want to participate? I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. Raymond was her father. Fathers spent time with their daughters. That was normal. That was healthy. But the lock on Harper's bedroom door kept creeping back into my mind. Later that week, I arrived early on a Friday morning, around 7 instead of 8, because I needed to leave early for my own daughter's parent-teacher conference. I used my key to let myself in quietly, not wanting to disturb anyone if they were still asleep. The house was silent except for footsteps above me. Someone was awake. I headed to the kitchen to start coffee, but as I passed the staircase, I heard Raymond's voice drifting down from the second floor. "Harper, come here." "Let me see." My feet stopped moving. I stood in the foyer, holding my breath. "Daddy, I don't want to." Harper's voice was small, frightened. "We've talked about this. Daddy needs to make sure you're healthy. It's important." His tone was patient, gentle even, but something about it made my stomach turn. "You trust Daddy, don't you?" Silence. "Harper?" Firmer now. "Yes, Daddy." "Good girl. Now come into the bathroom so we have better light." I heard a door close upstairs. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might break through my ribs. What was he checking? Why in the bathroom? Why did Harper sound so scared? I stood there for a full minute, paralyzed by indecision. Should I go upstairs? Should I interrupt? What if I was wrong? What if this was innocent and I embarrassed myself, embarrassed them, lost this job I desperately needed? But what if I was right? When Harper came down for breakfast 20 minutes later, her eyes were red like she'd been crying. She wouldn't look at anyone. She pushed her oatmeal around the bowl without taking a single bite. Raymond came down shortly after, showered and dressed in one of his expensive suits, whistling softly. He kissed Victoria on the cheek, ruffled Chloe's hair, and squeezed Harper's shoulder as he passed. Harper flinched. It was barely noticeable, just a tiny recoil, a tightening of her small shoulders. But I saw it, and when she glanced up, our eyes met for just a moment. In that moment, I saw something that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. I saw a little girl screaming for help with a voice nobody else could hear. That afternoon, after Raymond left for work and Victoria went to meet a client, I did something I'd never done before, something that crossed every professional boundary I'd ever maintained. I went into Raymond's office. My hands trembled as I opened the door, half expecting an alarm to sound or Victoria to suddenly appear and demand to know what I was doing. But the house remained silent except for the distant sound of the girls playing upstairs. The office was pristine, organized, everything in its place. A large mahogany desk dominated the room, with a leather chair that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Built-in bookshelves lined 2 walls, filled with medical journals and pharmaceutical textbooks. I didn't know what I was looking for. Evidence? Proof? Something to confirm the awful suspicions growing in my mind like toxic weeds. I checked the desk drawers. Locked. I scanned the bookshelves. Nothing unusual. I was about to give up when I noticed something odd about the closet door. It didn't quite close flush with the frame. Inside the closet, behind hanging coats and suits, was a small filing cabinet. Unlocked, my fingers felt numb as I opened the top drawer. Inside were folders, lots of them, medical files, pharmaceutical documents, research papers, nothing concerning at first glance. But then I saw a folder labeled simply with Harper's name. I pulled it out with shaking hands and opened it. What I saw inside made the room spin. Photographs, dozens of them. Harper at different ages, 5, 6, recent ones. Close-up photos of her body. Clinical, detailed, invasive photos that no father should ever have of his daughter. They weren't explicit in the traditional sense. They were disguised as medical documentation, charts tracking her growth, her development, but the angles, the focus, the sheer number of them, this wasn't a father monitoring his daughter's health. This was documentation of something much darker. I closed the folder quickly, my hand shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. I shoved it back in the drawer exactly where I'd found it and stumbled out of the office, pulling the door shut behind me. In the hallway, I braced myself against the wall, trying to breathe, trying not to vomit. Because now I knew. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't just a gut feeling or maternal instinct. This was real. And Harper, sweet, quiet, fading Harper, was trapped in this house with a monster who everyone else saw as the perfect father. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photographs. Harper's face in image after image, her eyes growing more distant with each one, like she was learning to leave her body behind, while her father documented God knows what. I kept reaching for my phone, my finger hovering over the numbers, 9-1-1. But then doubt would creep in. What if I was misinterpreting? What if those really were just medical records? Raymond worked in pharmaceuticals. Maybe he was overly cautious about health tracking. But deep down, I knew better. My gut knew better. The next Tuesday, I made a decision. I was going to arrive early, really early, and see what happened in that house when they thought no one was watching. I pulled into the driveway at 6:30 in the morning. The sun was just starting to paint the sky pink and orange, and most of the windows in the house were still dark. Victoria's car was gone. She'd mentioned something about an early breakfast meeting with a potential client. Perfect timing. I used my key as quietly as possible, slipping through the side door and removing my shoes so my footsteps wouldn't announce my presence. The house was tomb silent. My heart hammered against my ribs as I moved through the kitchen, unsure what I was even looking for. Then I heard it. A small voice from down the hallway. Harper's voice. "Daddy, please, it hurts again." I froze in the middle of the kitchen, my blood turning to ice water. "Shh, shh, sweetheart." Raymond's voice was so gentle, so soothing, the kind of voice you'd use to calm a frightened animal. "Daddy's just checking to make sure you're healthy. You know how important that is, right?" "But it hurts," Harper whimpered. Can't we stop?" My legs moved without conscious thought, carrying me toward the hallway. I pressed myself against the wall, just out of sight from Raymond's office, where their voices were coming from. The door was cracked open about 2 inches. "This is our special secret, remember?" Raymond said, his voice dropping lower. "This is how Daddy takes care of you. How Daddy makes sure his special girl stays perfect. You don't want to worry Mommy, do you?" "No, Daddy." "And you know what happens when people break promises about secrets, right? When they tell things they're not supposed to tell." Silence. Heavy, horrible silence. "Harper, answer Daddy." "Bad things happen," Harper whispered, her voice so small I almost couldn't hear it. You said bad things would happen to Mommy if I told." "That she'd get sick, and it would be my fault." My hand flew to my mouth to stifle a gasp. He was threatening her. This monster was threatening a 6-year-old child to keep her silent about whatever he was doing to her. "That's right, baby girl. See? You're so smart, so good at remembering." Raymond's voice turned sing-song, like he was praising a dog for doing a trick. "Now, just a few more minutes, and we'll be all done. Can you be brave for Daddy?" I heard Harper let out a shaky breath. "Okay, Daddy. That's my girl. Come here." I couldn't listen anymore. My vision was blurring with tears, my whole body shaking with rage and horror. I backed away from the hallway as quietly as I'd approached, making my way to the powder room near the front entrance. I locked myself inside and collapsed against the sink, silent sobs racking my body. I bit down on my fist to keep from screaming, from running back there and tearing that office door off its hinges, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to be smart about this. I needed evidence. I needed Harper to be safe, truly safe, not just rescued in the moment, only to be returned to danger, because I couldn't prove what was happening. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to compose myself. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Her eyes were wild, desperate, furious. I stayed in that bathroom for 15 minutes, waiting for my hands to stop shaking, waiting for my breathing to return to normal. When I finally emerged, I made noise, dropping my keys, calling out a cheerful morning, like I'd just arrived. I heard rapid movement from Raymond's office, the sound of drawers closing, papers being shuffled. "Jasmine, you're early," Raymond said, appearing in the hallway with Harper trailing behind him. He was already dressed for work, not a hair out of place. Smiling like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. Harper looked like a ghost. Her face was pale and drawn, her eyes fixed on the floor. She was holding her lower abdomen, hunched slightly like she was in pain. "Yeah, got my schedule mixed up," I lied, forcing my voice to sound light and casual, even though I wanted to scream. Thought I was supposed to be here at 6:30 today. My mistake. No problem at all. Raymond checked his watch. I was just having some quality time with Harper before work. Weren't we, sweetheart? Harper nodded but said nothing. Raymond grabbed his briefcase from the office, kissed the top of Harper's head. She went rigid at his touch and headed for the door. Have a great day, ladies. Harper, remember what we talked about, okay? Yes, Daddy, Harper whispered, and then he was gone. The door closed behind him, his car started in the driveway, and the sound of the engine faded into the distance. Harper stood in the hallway, small and broken and alone. I knelt down to her level, my heart shattering into pieces. Harper, honey, I need to use the bathroom, she interrupted, her voice flat and emotionless. She walked past me like I wasn't even there, disappearing into the powder room and locking the door behind her. I heard water running. Then, faintly, the sound of a child crying. Harper stayed in that bathroom for 20 minutes. I stood outside the door, my ear pressed against the wood, listening to the water run and run and run. She was trying to drown out the sound of her own crying. I knew that trick. I'd done it myself more times than I could count. Sweet girl, I called softly through the door. I'm right here if you need anything. Take your time. No response, just running water and muffled sobs. When she finally emerged, her face was scrubbed red, her eyes swollen. She'd changed her clothes. The pajamas she'd been wearing were now bundled in her arms. I need these washed, she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. They got dirty. My throat tightened. Of course, baby. I'll take care of them right now. I reached for the bundle, but Harper pulled back slightly, clutching the clothes tighter against her chest. Can you make sure they get really clean? Like extra soap? I promise, I said gently. Extra soap, hot water, everything. She finally handed them over, and our fingers touched briefly. Her hand was ice cold despite the warm house. Harper started to walk away, then stopped. She stood there in the hallway, her back to me, her little shoulders hunched forward like she was carrying the weight of the entire world. Miss Jasmine. Yes, sweet girl? She paused, her voice so quiet I had to strain to hear. Do you think there's something wrong with me? My heart stopped. What? No. Harper, no. Daddy says he has to check me because something might be wrong. He says I'm different, special. That's why we have to keep it secret. Her voice was mechanical, reciting words that had clearly been repeated to her over and over. He says he's the only one who can fix it. I wanted to grab her, hold her, tell her that nothing about her needed fixing, that the only thing wrong was what was being done to her. But I couldn't fall apart. Not now. She needed me to be strong. Harper, honey, can you turn around and look at me? She shook her head, still facing away. Okay, that's okay. You don't have to look at me. But I need you to hear something, all right? You are perfect exactly as you are. There is nothing wrong with you. Nothing at all. But Daddy said what Daddy is telling you isn't true. The words came out firmer than I'd intended, and Harper's shoulders tensed. I softened my voice. Sweet girl, when something hurts, when something makes you sad or scared or uncomfortable, that's your body telling you something's not right. Do you understand? Silence. Harper, has Daddy hurt you? He says it only hurts because he's making me better, she whispered. He says I have to be brave, that all little girls go through this with their daddies. Rage flooded through me, so intense I saw spots in my vision. That's what he was telling her, that this was normal, that every father did this to their daughters. Harper, that's not... I'm tired, Miss Jasmine. Can I go to my room now? Before I could respond, she was already walking away, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floors. I watched her climb the stairs, each step seeming to take enormous effort, like she was wading through water. She disappeared into her bedroom. I heard the click of that lock sliding into place. I stood there holding her bundled pajamas, tears streaming down my face, completely helpless. The front door opened, startling me. Victoria breezed in, her arms full of fabric samples and her phone pressed to her ear. No, I specifically said ivory, not cream, she was saying to whoever was on the other end. She barely glanced at me as she passed. Jasmine, be a dear and make some coffee, would you? It's going to be one of those days. I watched her walk into her home office, completely oblivious to the fact that her daughter was upstairs, locked in her room, suffering from abuse that was happening right under her nose. How could she not see it? How could a mother not notice that her child was dying inside? But then again, I'd been here for 3 years. I'd watched Harper transform from a bright, talkative little girl into a silent shadow. And I'd told myself it was just a phase. Growing pains, kids being kids. We see what we want to see. We believe what's comfortable to believe, because the alternative, admitting that evil can live in a beautiful house, can wear an expensive suit, can kiss you goodnight, and tuck you in with a smile, that's too terrifying. Later that afternoon, after Victoria left for another client meeting, I found Harper sitting in the window seat of the living room, the same spot where she used to curl up with books, back when reading brought her joy. She wasn't reading now, just staring out the window at nothing. I sat down across from her, giving her space but making my presence known. Harper, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that? She didn't respond. When your daddy, when he says he's checking you, where does he check? Her face crumpled. I can't tell. He said I can't tell anyone. Ever. I know he said that, sweet girl, but some secrets aren't meant to be kept. Some secrets hurt us when we hold on to them. Harper's bottom lip trembled. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Daddy said nothing was wrong. He said he's just making sure I stay healthy. That's what daddies do. Is that what he told you? She nodded, more tears falling now. He said if I tell anyone, they won't understand. They'll think I'm bad. They'll take me away from Mommy and Chloe, and it'll be all my fault. My hands clenched into fists. Every word out of that man's mouth was calculated manipulation designed to trap this child in silence. Harper, listen to me very carefully. Nothing that's happening is your fault. Do you hear me? Nothing. She finally looked at me then, really looked at me, and the brokenness in those green eyes nearly destroyed me. Then why does it hurt, Miss Jasmine? Why does it hurt so much if it's supposed to make me better? I had no answer that wouldn't shatter what little innocence she had left. So instead, I made her a promise. I'm going to help you, sweet girl. I don't know how yet, but I promise you, I'm going to make this stop. Thursday morning started like any other day. I arrived at 8 sharp, let myself in through the side door, and began my usual routine. Victoria had already left for a site visit with a client. Raymond was at work. The girls were at school. The house was mine to clean in peaceful silence. Except there was no peace anymore. Not for me. Not since I'd started seeing the truth hiding behind the Brennan family's perfect facade. I'd been keeping mental notes for 2 weeks now. Every strange interaction between Raymond and Harper, every time she flinched or went quiet, every locked door and whispered conversation. But mental notes weren't enough. I needed something concrete, something that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I started in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher and wiping down counters. Then the living room, vacuuming and dusting. By 10 o'clock, I was upstairs, working my way through the bedrooms. The girls' bathroom was last on my list. It was a mess, as usual. Toothpaste smeared on the counter, towels on the floor, Chloe's hair clips scattered everywhere. I gathered the towels and tossed them in the hamper, wiped down the mirror, scrubbed the sink. Then I knelt down to empty the small trash can beside the toilet. At first, I thought it was just tissues and cotton swabs, normal bathroom waste. But as I pulled out the liner, something caught my eye, torn pieces of photo paper mixed in with everything else. Photographs, ripped into small pieces and buried under other trash. My hands started shaking before I even knew why. I carefully picked out the fragments, setting them on the bathroom counter. There were maybe 15 or 20 pieces, some no bigger than a postage stamp. The edges were jagged, torn hastily, like someone had been trying to destroy evidence in a hurry. I started fitting them together like a jigsaw puzzle. The first piece showed blonde hair, Harper's hair. The second piece showed part of a small shoulder. My stomach began to turn. The third piece showed, oh God. I had to grip the edge of the counter to keep from collapsing. My breath came in short, sharp gasps as I continued piecing together the torn photograph, praying I was wrong, praying this was something innocent. But it wasn't innocent. The completed image showed Harper in her bedroom, wearing only underwear, positioned in a way that no child should ever be positioned. The angle was deliberate, clinical, like someone documenting a specimen rather than photographing their daughter. And there were more fragments, more photographs. I reassembled them with trembling fingers, tears blurring my vision. Each image was worse than the last. Harper in different poses, different states of undress, always with that same dead look in her eyes. Some were marked with dates in the corner, a timeline of abuse spanning months. The most recent one was dated just 3 days ago. I stumbled backward, my hip hitting the sink, bile rising in my throat. I made it to the toilet just in time, vomiting until there was nothing left inside me but rage and horror and grief. When the heaving finally stopped, I sat on the cold tile floor, my back against the bathtub, staring at those reassembled photographs on the counter. This was it. This was the proof I needed. Not suspicions or gut feelings or overheard conversations that could be explained away. This was documentation of abuse. Clear, undeniable, criminal. But who had torn them up? Raymond? Had he decided to destroy evidence? Or had Harper found them and ripped them apart herself, trying to erase what was being done to her? The thought of that little girl discovering these images, seeing herself documented like this, made me want to scream. I forced myself to stand up, to think clearly despite the panic coursing through my veins. I needed to preserve this evidence. I couldn't let it be destroyed completely. My phone was in my back pocket. With shaking hands, I pulled it out and started photographing each reassembled image, making sure to capture every detail, every date, every horrifying angle. The camera shutter clicked over and over, each sound like a nail being driven into Raymond Brennan's coffin. When I documented everything, I carefully gathered the torn pieces and put them in a plastic sandwich bag I found in the bathroom cabinet. Evidence. I needed to preserve it exactly as I'd found it. But then a terrifying thought hit me. What if Raymond came home and realized the photographs were missing from the trash? What if he checked and found them gone? I stood there frozen, the bag clutched in my hand, my mind racing. If he knew I'd found them, Harper could be in even more danger. He might escalate, he might run, he might hurt her to keep her quiet. No, I had to be smart about this. I took the torn pieces out of the bag and carefully put them back in the trash can, arranging other waste on top of them exactly as I'd found it. Let him think they were still safely disposed of. Let him believe his secret was still safe. I had photographs on my phone. That was enough. That had to be enough. I finished cleaning the bathroom on autopilot, my mind elsewhere. Every few minutes, I'd pull out my phone and look at the images again, making sure they were clear, making sure they'd saved properly. They had. Crystal clear, undeniable. By the time I left the Brennan house that afternoon, I had proof of what Raymond had been doing to his daughter. The question was, what the hell was I going to do with it? Chapter 8, The Discovery, word count 850 words. Thursday morning started like any other day. I arrived at 8 sharp, let myself in through the side door, and began my usual routine. Victoria had already left for a site visit with a client. Raymond was at work. The girls were at school. The house was mine to clean in peaceful silence. Except there was no peace anymore. Not for me. Not since I'd started seeing the truth hiding behind the Brennan family's perfect facade. I'd been keeping mental notes for 2 weeks now. Every strange interaction between Raymond and Harper, every time she flinched or went quiet, every locked door and whispered conversation. But mental notes weren't enough. I needed something concrete. Something that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I started in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher and wiping down counters. Then the living room, vacuuming and dusting. By 10 o'clock, I was upstairs, working my way through the bedrooms. The girls' bathroom was last on my list. It was a mess, as usual. Toothpaste smeared on the counter, towels on the floor, Chloe's hair clips scattered everywhere. I gathered the towels and tossed them in the hamper, wiped down the mirror, scrubbed the sink. Then I knelt down to empty the small trash can beside the toilet. At first, I thought it was just tissues and cotton swabs, normal bathroom waste. But as I pulled out the liner, something caught my eye. Torn pieces of photo paper mixed in with everything else. Photographs, ripped into small pieces and buried under other trash. My hands started shaking before I even knew why. I carefully picked out the fragments, setting them on the bathroom counter. There were maybe 15 or 20 pieces, some no bigger than a postage stamp. The edges were jagged, torn hastily, like someone had been trying to destroy evidence in a hurry. I started fitting them together like a jigsaw puzzle. The first piece showed blonde hair, Harper's hair, The second piece showed part of a small shoulder. My stomach began to turn. The third piece showed, oh God. I had to grip the edge of the counter to keep from collapsing. My breath came in short, sharp gasps as I continued piecing together the torn photograph, praying I was wrong, praying this was something innocent. But it wasn't innocent. The completed image showed Harper in her bedroom, wearing only underwear, positioned in a way that no child should ever be positioned. The angle was deliberate, clinical, like someone documenting a specimen rather than photographing their daughter. And there were more fragments, more photographs. I reassembled them with trembling fingers, tears blurring my vision. Each image was worse than the last. Harper in different poses, different states of undress, always with that same dead look in her eyes. Some were marked with dates in the corner, a timeline of abuse spanning months. The most recent one was dated just 3 days ago. I stumbled backward, my hip hitting the sink, bile rising in my throat. I made it to the toilet just in time, vomiting until there was nothing left inside me but rage and horror and grief. When the heaving finally stopped, I sat on the cold tile floor, my back against the bathtub, staring at those reassembled photographs on the counter. This was it. This was the proof I needed, not suspicions or gut feelings or overheard conversations that could be explained away. This was documentation of abuse. Clear, undeniable, criminal. But who had torn them up? Raymond? Had he decided to destroy evidence? Or had Harper found them and ripped them apart herself, trying to erase what was being done to her? The thought of that little girl discovering these images, seeing herself documented like this, made me want to scream. I forced myself to stand up, to think clearly despite the panic coursing through my veins. I needed to preserve this evidence. I couldn't let it be destroyed completely. My phone was in my back pocket. With shaking hands, I pulled it out and started photographing each reassembled image, making sure to capture every detail, every date, every horrifying angle. The camera shutter clicked over and over, each sound like a nail being driven into Raymond Brennan's coffin. When I documented everything, I carefully gathered the torn pieces and put them in a plastic sandwich bag I found in the bathroom cabinet. Evidence. I needed to preserve it exactly as I'd found it. But then a terrifying thought hit me. What if Raymond came home and realized the photographs were missing from the trash? What if he checked and found them gone? I stood there frozen, the bag clutched in my hand, my mind racing. If he knew I'd found them, Harper could be in even more danger. He might escalate. He might run. He might hurt her to keep her quiet. No, I had to be smart about this. I took the torn pieces out of the bag and carefully put them back in the trash can, arranging other waste on top of them exactly as I'd found it. Let him think they were still safely disposed of. Let him believe his secret was still safe. I had photographs on my phone. That was enough. That had to be enough. I finished cleaning the bathroom on autopilot, my mind elsewhere. Every few minutes, I'd pull out my phone and look at the images again, making sure they were clear, making sure they'd saved properly. They had. Crystal clear. Undeniable. By the time I left the Brennan house that afternoon, I had proof of what Raymond had been doing to his daughter. The question was, what the hell was I going to do with it? Chapter 9. The Evidence. Word count, 800, 850 words. I didn't go straight home that Thursday afternoon. Instead, I drove to the parking lot of a grocery store 3 miles from the Brennan house and just sat there, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The photographs were on my phone. Real evidence of real abuse happening to a real child. I should call the police. That's what any sane person would do. Dial 911, report what I'd found, let the professionals handle it. But my finger hovered over the screen, unable to make the call. What if they didn't believe me? What if they said the photographs weren't clear enough, weren't explicit enough to warrant an investigation? What if Raymond's lawyers got involved and twisted everything around, made it look like I was a disgruntled employee trying to cause trouble? What if I called the police and Harper ended up in even more danger because of it? The thoughts spiraled through my mind, each one more paralyzing than the last. I sat in that parking lot for 45 minutes, crying and praying and trying to figure out the right move. Finally, I made a decision. I needed to document everything. Not just the photographs, but every incident, every conversation, every red flag I'd noticed over the past 2 months. I needed to build a case so airtight that no lawyer, no matter how expensive, could explain it away. When I got home, my daughters were already there. Keisha, my oldest at 19, was making dinner while Destiny, 16, did homework at the kitchen table. "Mama, you okay?" Keisha asked immediately, seeing my face. "You look awful." "Just a long day, baby," I lied, kissing her forehead. "I'm gonna go lay down for a bit." I locked myself in my bedroom and pulled out an old notebook from my nightstand drawer. A plain, spiral-bound journal I'd bought years ago and never used. Today, it was going to become Harper's lifeline. I started at the beginning, documenting everything I could remember with as much detail as possible. September 3rd, noticed Harper has become withdrawn, not eating properly. Victoria dismisses concerns as a phase. September 10th, Harper insists on lock for bedroom door. Raymond installs it himself. 6-year-old shouldn't need to lock herself in at night. September 15th, overheard Raymond telling Harper about special secrets and checking her. Harper said, "It hurts." Raymond threatened her to keep quiet. My hand cramped as I wrote, but I didn't stop. Every detail mattered. Every incident was a piece of the puzzle. September 22nd, Harper told me, "Daddy says nothing was wrong. Mentioned he checks her because something might be wrong with her." Classic grooming language. September 28th, found Harper's pajamas. She needed them extra clean. Possible evidence of abuse. October 4th, discovered inappropriate photographs of Harper in bathroom trash. Dated images showing pattern of documentation. Photographed evidence on phone. I wrote for 2 hours straight, filling page after page. When I finally finished, my hand was shaking from exhaustion, but I had a comprehensive timeline of everything I'd witnessed. But it still didn't feel like enough. Over the next week, I became obsessive about documentation. Every time I was at the Brennan house, I paid attention to everything. I noted what time Raymond came home. When he spent time alone with Harper, how long those sessions lasted, how Harper looked before and after. I started arriving earlier and staying later, volunteering to help with things that weren't technically part of my job, just so I could be present, just so I could witness and document. Victoria thought I was being extra helpful. "Jasmine, you're a lifesaver," she'd say, completely oblivious to the fact that I was building a case against her husband. Raymond was harder to read. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me, a slight frown on his face, like he was trying to figure out if I suspected anything. Those moments terrified me. I'd smile, make small talk about the weather or what I was cooking for dinner, and pray he couldn't see through me. The weight of what I was carrying was crushing. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat properly. My daughters started asking questions I couldn't answer. My friends noticed I'd become distant, distracted. But how could I tell them? How could I explain that I was watching a child be abused and hadn't yet found the courage to stop it? The guilt was eating me alive. Every night I'd lie in bed and think about Harper locked in her room, terrified of what tomorrow might bring. Every morning I'd wake up and tell myself, today I'll call the police. But then doubt would creep in. What if I didn't have enough evidence? What if my call got Harper taken away from her mother and sister, not just her abuser? What if the system failed her the way it had failed so many other children? 10 days after finding the photographs, I had my journal filled with entries, my phone filled with evidence, and my heart filled with terror about what I needed to do next. I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, when Keisha sat down across from me. "Mama, what's going on?" she asked quietly. "And don't tell me nothing. I know you. Something's eating at you." I looked at my beautiful, grown daughter, the one I'd raised to be strong and brave, and to always do the right thing even when it was hard. And I broke down. "There's a little girl," I whispered, "and someone's hurting her. And I know about it, but I don't know what to do." Keisha reached across the table and took my hand. "Mama, you've always taught us that doing the right thing isn't about being fearless. It's about being scared and doing it anyway." She was right. God help me, she was right. But doing the right thing meant potentially destroying a family. Losing my job, facing Raymond's wealth and power in court, being called a liar, a troublemaker, someone with an agenda. Doing the right thing meant risking everything. The question was I brave enough to do it? The question kept me awake at night. Why only Harper? They were identical twins, same blonde hair, same green eyes, same everything on the outside. So why was Harper fading away while Chloe remained bright and untouched? I started watching Chloe more carefully, terrified of what I might find. Was she hiding her pain better than Harper? Was she next in line, waiting for her turn in Raymond's office? Or had Raymond already gotten to her, and I'd been too focused on Harper to notice? The thought made me physically ill. It was a Monday morning, about 2 weeks after I'd found the photographs. Victoria was meeting with a contractor about renovating the guest bathroom. Raymond was at work. The girls were home on a teacher planning day, which meant I had a rare opportunity to observe them together without parental supervision. Chloe was in the living room, sprawled on the floor with markers and construction paper, creating what looked like a poster for some imaginary carnival. Her tongue stuck out slightly as she concentrated. Her whole face lit up with creative joy. Harper sat on the couch behind her, knees pulled to her chest, watching her sister with hollow eyes. "Harper, you want to help me?" Chloe asked without looking up. "I need someone to draw the horses for the merry-go-round. You're better at horses than me." "I'm tired," Harper whispered, You're always tired now. Chloe finally turned to look at her sister, and for the first time, I saw something flicker across her face. Not quite understanding, but awareness, like she knew something was different but couldn't name it. Are you sick or something? Harper's eyes darted to me, then back to Chloe. I'm fine. You don't look fine. You look sad. Chloe put down her marker and crawled over to the couch, plopping down next to Harper. Is somebody being mean to you at school? Because if they are, I'll punch them. I'll punch them right in the nose. Despite everything, I almost smiled. That was pure Chloe, ready to fight the world for her sister. Harper shook her head. Nobody's being mean. Then what's wrong? Nothing. Daddy says... Harper stopped herself, pressing her lips together tight. Chloe tilted her head, studying her twin. Daddy says what? Nothing. Never mind. I watched this exchange carefully, looking for any sign that Chloe knew more than she was letting on. But her confusion seemed genuine. She was concerned about her sister, yes, but not in a way that suggested she understood what was happening. Not in a way that suggested it was happening to her too. Over the next few days, I paid close attention to how Raymond interacted with both girls. With Chloe, he was playful. He'd chase her around the house, listen to her endless chatter about school, help her with homework at the kitchen table. Normal father-daughter stuff. Loving, even. With Harper, everything was different. Quieter. More controlled. He'd touch her shoulder and she'd freeze. He'd ask her to come to his office, and she'd comply like a soldier following orders. There was no joy in their interactions, no lightness. Just a heavy, suffocating dynamic that made my skin crawl. One evening, I was folding laundry in the upstairs hallway when I heard Raymond call out from his bedroom, Chloe, come help Daddy find his cufflinks. Chloe came racing up the stairs, pigtails bouncing. She disappeared into the master bedroom, and I could hear her giggling as she searched through Raymond's dresser drawers. Found them, she announced triumphantly. They were hiding behind your socks. You're such a good helper, Raymond said warmly. Thank you, sweetheart. Now go wash up for dinner. Chloe skipped out of the room and past me, completely unbothered. Normal, healthy, safe. The contrast haunted me. Later that week, I did something I'm not proud of. I cornered Chloe while she was alone in the kitchen, getting a snack after school. Hey, Chloe Bear, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Can I ask you something? Sure. She was digging through the pantry, looking for crackers. Does your daddy ever do special checkups with you? Like when he makes sure you're healthy? Chloe paused, turning to look at me with a confused expression. You mean like when we go to the doctor? No, I mean here at home. Does Daddy ever check you? She scrunched up her nose. That's weird. No, why would he do that? That's what Dr. Peters is for. The relief that flooded through me was so intense, I had to grip the counter for support. You're right, baby. That is what doctors are for. Is Harper sick? Chloe asked suddenly, her eyes widening. Is that why you're asking? Is Daddy checking her because she's sick? The innocence in her question broke my heart. I don't know, sweetheart. I'm just trying to understand some things. Harper's been acting really weird, Chloe said, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. She doesn't play with me anymore. She doesn't laugh, and sometimes I hear her crying at night through the wall, but when I knock on her door, she tells me to go away. Does that make you sad? Chloe nodded, her eyes getting shiny with tears. I miss her. I miss how she used to be. It's like she's disappearing, and I don't know how to bring her back. Out of the mouths of babes. That's exactly what was happening. Harper was disappearing, piece by piece, while everyone watched. Miss Jasmine? Chloe's voice was small now. Do you think Harper still loves me? I knelt down and pulled that child into a hug. Of course she does, baby. She loves you so much. She's going through something really hard right now. Can you help her? You help with everything else. Can you help Harper come back? I held her tighter, my own tears falling into her blonde hair. I'm going to try, sweetheart. I promise I'm going to try. When Chloe pulled away and went back to searching for crackers, I stayed there on the kitchen floor, processing what I'd learned. Raymond was targeting Harper specifically. Not both girls, just Harper. But why? What made Harper the victim and Chloe the one left untouched? I thought about their personalities. Chloe was loud, assertive, the kind of kid who'd tell on someone in a heartbeat. Harper was quiet, compliant, easier to manipulate and control. Raymond had chosen his victim carefully. He'd selected the twin who would be easiest to silence, easiest to threaten, easiest to groom into keeping his secrets. The calculation of it made me sick. That night, I added a new entry to my journal. October the 18th, confirmed through conversation with Chloe that abuse appears isolated to Harper. Chloe shows no signs of victimization and has normal, healthy relationship with Raymond. Harper specifically targeted, likely due to quieter, more compliant personality. Predatory selection of victim. As I wrote, another horrifying thought occurred to me. What happened when Harper got older? When she became harder to control, harder to silence? Would Raymond move on to Chloe then? Or would he escalate with Harper, doing whatever it took to maintain his power over her? Either scenario was unbearable. I closed my journal and looked at the clock. It was past midnight. In 7 hours, I'd be back at the Brennan house, watching this nightmare unfold in real time, still paralyzed by fear and doubt. How much longer could I let this go on? How much more evidence did I need before I found the courage to act? Harper didn't have time for me to figure it out. Every day I waited was another day she suffered. The weight of that truth was crushing me. The breaking point came on a Wednesday afternoon. Victoria had left for a design expo downtown, one of those all-day events where she'd be gone until evening. Raymond had called in sick to work, something about a headache, though he looked perfectly healthy to me when I arrived that morning. The girls were home early because of a half day at school. Something in the air felt wrong from the moment I walked through that door. A tension, a heaviness, like the house itself knew something terrible was coming. Raymond was in his office with the door closed. Chloe was upstairs in her room, singing along to some pop song. And Harper was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a glass of orange juice she hadn't touched. You okay, sweet girl? I asked softly, unloading groceries. She didn't answer, just kept staring at that glass, like it held all the answers to questions she was too afraid to ask. Then I heard it. Raymond's office door opening, his footsteps in the hallway. Harper, he called out, his voice sickly sweet. Come here, sweetheart. It's time for your checkup. Harper's whole body went rigid, her hands resting on the table started trembling. "Harper, did you hear Daddy?" I. Harper's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't want to." The silence that followed was deafening. Raymond appeared in the kitchen doorway, and the smile on his face didn't reach his eyes. "What was that, sweetheart? I don't want to do the checkup today." Harper's voice was stronger now, though her hands still shook. "I don't feel good." I pretended to be absorbed in putting away canned goods, but every cell in my body was on high alert. "You know the rules," Raymond said, his tone still pleasant, but with an edge underneath. "We do checkups every Wednesday and Friday. Daddy needs to make sure his special girl stays healthy." "Please, Daddy." Harper finally looked up at him, and the desperation in her eyes was heartbreaking. "No more checkups, please. I'll be good, I promise. I won't tell anyone anything. Just please, no more." Raymond's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to me, then back to Harper. "Jasmine, would you mind running to the store? I forgot to add heavy cream to the grocery list." He was trying to get me out of the house, away from Harper, away from whatever he was about to do. "Actually, I picked up heavy cream already," I said, my heart pounding. "It's right here." "Well, then we need milk." "Yes, milk. We're almost out." "There's a full gallon in the fridge, Mr. Brennan. I bought it yesterday." His smile became strained. "How about you start on the upstairs bathrooms then? Those need a deep clean." He was giving me an order, not making a request, and the message was clear. Leave, now. Mind your own business. Every instinct screamed at me to obey, to protect my job, to avoid confrontation. But I looked at Harper, small, terrified Harper, and something inside me snapped. "I actually need to finish the kitchen first," I said firmly. "Health code and all. I'll get to the bathrooms after." Raymond's eyes narrowed. For a moment, I saw the mask slip, saw the predator underneath the expensive suit and charming smile. "Harper, come to my office, now. Daddy, please. Now, Harper." Harper stood on shaky legs, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me with an expression that said, "Help me." But what could I do? He was her father. This was his house. I was just the housekeeper, but I was also the only witness to what was about to happen. "Actually, Mr. Brennan," I heard myself say, "I need Harper's help with something." He turned to me slowly. "Excuse me?" "I need her to show me which cleaning products Victoria wants used on the girls' bathroom fixtures. She mentioned something specific last week, and Harper was there when she said it. I can't remember exactly. It was a ridiculous excuse. Transparent. We both knew it. Raymond stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. He was weighing his options. Push back and risk me getting suspicious, or let it go and wait for another opportunity. "That can wait until after her checkup," he finally said. "No." Harper's voice was small, but clear. "No more checkups, Daddy. I don't want them anymore." "Harper, it hurts." She was crying openly now, her voice rising. "It hurts, and I hate it, and I don't want to do it anymore. You said you were making me better, but I'm not better. I'm worse. Everything is worse." "Lower your voice," Raymond hissed, glancing toward the stairs where Chloe was still singing upstairs, oblivious. "You're being dramatic." "I'm not dramatic. You're hurting me." The words came out in a sob. "You keep saying it's normal, but Miss Jenkins at school said that daddies aren't supposed to." Raymond moved fast, crossing the kitchen and grabbing Harper's arm. "That's enough. Let her go." The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. Raymond's head whipped toward me. "What did you say?" "I said, let her go, Mr. Brennan." My voice was shaking, but I stood my ground. "She said she doesn't want to do the checkup. She has the right to say no. She's my daughter. I don't need permission from the help to take care of my own child." The help. There it was. The reminder of my place. "With all due respect, sir, that little girl is crying and begging you to stop something that's hurting her. That's not taking care of her. That's—" "Careful, Jasmine." His voice was ice cold now. "Very careful. You're making accusations that could cost you a lot more than your job." We stood there in a standoff, him still gripping Harper's arm, me frozen by the sink, both of us knowing we'd crossed a line we couldn't come back from. Harper was openly sobbing now, her small body shaking with the force of it. "Let me go," she whimpered. "Please, Daddy, please let me go." And that's when I made my decision. "Harper, go upstairs to your sister's room," I said firmly. "She's not going anywhere until—" "Let her go, Mr. Brennan, or I'm calling the police. Right now." Raymond let go of Harper's arm, not because he wanted to, not because my threat scared him, but because we both heard it at the same time. Chloe's footsteps on the stairs, her voice calling out, "Harper, you want to play dolls with me?" He released his grip and stepped back, his face transforming instantly into that charming smile, like flipping a switch, like the last 5 minutes hadn't happened at all. "Go play with your sister," he said to Harper, his voice gentle and loving. Oscar-worthy performance. "We'll finish our talk later." Harper ran. She bolted past him, past me, up those stairs like her life depended on it. Raymond turned to me, and the smile vanished. "You're fired. Pack your things and get out." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip my car keys. "Mr. Brennan, out. Now. And if you breathe a word of your ridiculous accusations to anyone, I will destroy you. Do you understand me? I have lawyers who will bury you so deep you'll never see daylight again. You'll lose everything, your house, your reputation, your daughter's futures." He said it so calmly, so matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather instead of threatening to ruin my entire life. "I'll tell Victoria you were stealing," he continued, his voice cold and calculated. "I'll file a police report. I'll make sure you never work in this town again. No one will believe a word you say. You're just a bitter, fired employee trying to get revenge." I wanted to scream at him, wanted to tell him I had evidence, that I knew exactly what he was doing to Harper. But fear locked the words in my throat. "Get out." I left. I grabbed my purse and my phone, and I walked out of that house, leaving Harper alone with him. The guilt of it nearly brought me to my knees. Now I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot 5 miles away, having driven there on autopilot. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight, my fingers were numb. My phone sat in the cup holder, screen dark, silent. One call, that's all it would take. 3 numbers, 911. But I couldn't make my hand reach for it. What if I called and they didn't believe me? What if Raymond's lawyers really could destroy me? I had 2 daughters to support. I had rent to pay, bills to cover, college funds I'd been building for years. One call could take all of that away. He threatened you, I whispered to myself. He threatened to destroy you if you talk. But another voice in my head, the one that sounded like my mother, like my grandmother, like every strong woman who'd raised me, whispered back, "And what will Harper say when she grows up? When she realizes you knew and did nothing?" Tears streamed down my face. I was so tired, so scared, so completely out of my depth. I thought about my own daughters, Keisha and Destiny. What would I want someone to do if they were Harper? If they were being hurt and too terrified to ask for help? I'd want that person to be brave, to risk everything, to save them. But it was so much easier to say that when it wasn't your job, your safety, your future on the line. My phone buzzed. A text from Keisha. "Mama, you picking up dinner or should I cook?" Simple. Normal. The mundane question of a daughter who lived in a safe home with a mother who protected her. Harper didn't have that. Harper had a monster in a three-piece suit and a mother who refused to see the truth. I picked up my phone with shaking hands. Not to answer Keisha. To look at the evidence I'd collected. The photographs from the trash. The journal entries. The timeline of abuse spanning months. It was all there. Proof that couldn't be denied. But was it enough? Raymond was wealthy, connected, respected in this community. I was a housekeeper, a single mother who cleaned toilets for a living. Who would they believe? It doesn't matter who they believe, that voice in my head said again. It matters that you try. But trying could cost me everything. My job, already lost. My savings would be drained by legal fees if Raymond followed through on his threats. My reputation, destroyed if he claimed I was lying, stealing, vengeful. My daughters would suffer. We might lose our apartment. I might not be able to send them to college. Was one child's safety worth risking my own children's futures? God, what kind of question was that? What kind of person had I become that I was even asking it? I put my head on the steering wheel and sobbed. Great. Heaving sobs that came from the deepest part of my soul. I was so angry. Angry at Raymond for being a monster. Angry at Victoria for her willful blindness. Angry at a system that made it so hard to protect children. Angry at myself for not being braver, stronger, better. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Keisha. "Mama, you okay?" No, I wasn't okay. I'd never be okay again. Because no matter what I decided, call the police or stay silent, someone was going to get hurt. Either Harper would continue suffering or my family would pay the price for my courage. There was no good choice, no clean solution, just impossible options that all led to pain. I sat in that parking lot for 2 hours, crying and praying and begging God for guidance. The sun started setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful, peaceful. A stark contrast to the war raging inside me. Finally, I picked up my phone one more time. I scrolled through my photos until I found the images of those torn photographs. Harper's face stared back at me from the screen. Empty eyes, documented abuse, a childhood stolen. And I knew. I knew what I had to do. Not because it was easy, not because I wasn't terrified of the consequences, but because some things matter more than comfort and safety and keeping your head down. Some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight might destroy you. Harper was worth fighting for. I dialed the numbers with trembling fingers. 911. The phone rang once, twice. Each ring felt like an eternity. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice was calm, professional, routine for her, life-altering for me. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat had closed up, my breath coming in short gasps. Hello? Is anyone there? If you're in danger and can't speak, press any button on your phone. My voice cracked. I cleared my throat and tried again. I need to report child abuse. There, I'd said it. No taking it back now. Okay, ma'am. Can you tell me your name and location? My name is Jasmine Washington. I'm calling about a family I worked for, the Brennans. They live at 2847 Riverside Estates Drive. And what is the nature of the abuse you're reporting? The clinical way she asked made it somehow easier to answer, like I was giving a medical history instead of destroying a family. Sexual abuse of a 6-year-old girl. Her father, Raymond Brennan. I couldn't finish the sentence. Tears choked off the words. Take your time, Ms. Washington. I know this is difficult. Difficult. Such a small word for something so monstrous. I took a shaky breath and forced myself to continue. He calls them checkups. He takes her into his office or the bathroom and does things to her. She told me it hurts. She begs him to stop, but he threatens her to keep quiet. He tells her that all daddies do this, that she has to keep the secret or bad things will happen to her mother. How long has this been happening? I don't know exactly. I've been working for them for 3 years, but I only started noticing changes in Harper. That's the little girl, about 2 months ago. But I think it's been going on longer than that. Do you have any evidence to support this allegation? This was it. The moment where I either backed up my claims or became just another person making accusations with nothing to show for it. Yes, I have photographs. My voice was stronger now. I found torn-up pictures in the bathroom trash, inappropriate images of Harper. I photographed them before putting them back. The dates on the images go back months. I also have a detailed journal documenting behavioral changes, conversations I've overheard, and incidents I've witnessed. I could hear typing on the other end, the operator taking notes, creating a record that would follow Raymond Brennan for the rest of his life. Good. Let it follow him. Let everyone know what he was. Ms. Washington, is the child in immediate danger right now? My stomach dropped. I don't know. I was fired today, just a few hours ago. Harper tried to refuse one of his checkups, and I intervened. He told me to leave, threatened to destroy me if I said anything. I left her there with him. The guilt crashed over me again. I'd left her. After everything I'd witnessed, after all my promises to help her, I'd walked out that door and left Harper alone with her abuser. You did the right thing by calling, Ms. Washington. Let me connect you with Child Protective Services and a detective. They're going to want to speak with you directly and see your evidence. Can you stay on the line? Yes, I'll stay. There was a click, a brief hold tone, then a new voice. Male, deep, official. Ms. Washington, this is Detective Morris with the Special Victims Unit. I understand you're reporting suspected child sexual abuse. The words sexual abuse, said out loud by a police officer, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't just my suspicions anymore. This was an official investigation. Yes, sir. I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning. Don't leave anything out, no matter how small it seems. So I told him. Everything. From the first time I noticed Harper withdrawing to the confrontation that afternoon. I told him about the locked bedroom door, the overheard conversations, the photographs, the journal. Every detail I'd documented over the past 2 months. Detective Morris listened without interrupting, occasionally making sounds of acknowledgement. When I finished, there was a long pause. Ms. Washington, I want to thank you for making this call. I know it wasn't easy. What you've described indicates a serious pattern of abuse, and the evidence you've collected will be crucial to this investigation. What happens now? My voice was small, exhausted. Now, we act quickly. I'm going to send officers to the Brennan residence tonight. They'll conduct a welfare check and, if necessary, remove the child from the home. Child Protective Services will be involved, and I'm going to need you to come down to the station to provide a formal statement and turn over your evidence. Tonight. Time is critical in these cases, especially if the child is currently in danger. I looked at the clock on my dashboard. 7:47 p.m. By now, Victoria would be home from her expo. The family would be having dinner, probably. Playing happy family while Harper sat there, quiet and broken. I can be there in 20 minutes, I said. Good. Ask for me at the front desk. Detective Morris, Special Victims Unit, and Ms. Washington. Yes, you may have just saved that little girl's life. Whatever happens next, whatever consequences you face, remember that you did the right thing. I wanted to believe him, wanted to feel brave and righteous and sure of my decision. But all I felt was scared. Scared of Raymond's lawyers. Scared of losing everything I'd worked for. Scared that my daughters would pay the price for my courage. Scared that I'd made a horrible mistake. But most of all, I was scared that I'd called too late. That while I'd been sitting in this parking lot, wrestling with my conscience, Raymond had already done something to Harper that couldn't be undone. Thank you, Detective, I whispered. I hung up the phone and sat there for one more moment, letting the weight of what I'd just done settle over me. Then I started the car, took a deep breath, and drove to the police station. There was no turning back now. The wheels were in motion. By this time tomorrow, the Brennan family's perfect facade would be shattered. Raymond would be exposed. Victoria would know the truth. And Harper, sweet, suffering Harper, would finally be safe. At least, that's what I prayed would happen. Because the alternative, that I'd sacrificed everything for nothing, that the system would fail her the way it failed so many others, was too terrible to consider. As I pulled into the police station parking lot, I sent up one final prayer. Please, God, let this be enough. Let her be okay. Let me have done the right thing. Then I grabbed my phone with all its evidence, my journal full of documentation, and walked through those doors to tell my story, to fight for a little girl who couldn't fight for herself. No matter what it cost me, I was still at the police station, sitting in a small interview room with Detective Morris, when the call came through. Units are en route to the residence now, he said, hanging up his phone. Should be there within 5 minutes. 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, everything would change for the Brennan family. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I'd given my statement, turned over my phone with all the photographs, handed over my journal with months of documentation. Detective Morris had spent 2 hours going through everything with me, asking questions, taking notes, building his case. The evidence you've provided is substantial, he'd told me, combined with Harper's testimony. If she's able to give one, we have enough for an arrest. If she's able. Those 3 words haunted me. What if Harper was too scared, too traumatized, too well trained by Raymond's threats to speak the truth? Ms. Washington, you should go home, Detective Morris said gently. Get some rest. We'll handle things from here. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Not until I knew Harper was safe. Can I wait? Just until you hear back from the officers? He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. There's a waiting area down the hall. I'll come find you when we know more. I sat in that waiting area for 45 minutes, watching the clock tick by with agonizing slowness. Other people came and went, a man reporting a stolen car, a woman filing a restraining order, the normal chaos of a Wednesday night at a police station. And all I could think about was Harper. Was she okay? Had Raymond hurt her after I left? Was she scared right now, watching police cars pull up to her house? Finally, Detective Morris appeared in the doorway. They're at the house, he said. I thought you might want to know what's happening. I followed him back to his office, where a police radio crackled with voices. 1097. Arrived on scene at 2847 Riverside Drive. Copy that. Proceeding with welfare check. Detective Morris turned up the volume slightly. We both listened in silence. I heard the knock on the door through the radio. Heard a female officer's voice. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan? I'm Officer Chen with the Riverside Police Department. We need to speak with you about your daughter, Harper. Then Victoria's voice, distant but hysterical. What? What about Harper? What's happened? Is she hurt? Ma'am, if you could step outside. No, tell me what's going on. Raymond, get down here. The radio transmission broke up slightly, voices overlapping. I caught fragments. Need to speak with both parents. Received a report. Child Protective Services. Then Raymond's voice, calm and controlled, even through the static. Officers, there must be some mistake. Whatever you've heard, I assure you. Mr. Brennan, we have a warrant to enter the premises and conduct a welfare check on Harper Brennan. We also need both you and your wife to come down to the station for questioning. Questioning? About what? This is outrageous. I'm calling my lawyer. That's your right, sir. But first, we need to see Harper. More overlapping voices. Victoria crying. Raymond's tone shifting from controlled to angry. Officer Chen remaining professional and firm. Harper Brennan? Sweetheart, can you come downstairs, please? Silence on the radio. My heart hammered against my ribs. Harper, it's okay, another voice said. A woman from CPS, maybe. You're not in trouble. We just need to talk to you. Then, so faint, I almost missed it. Is Miss Jasmine here? Those 4 words broke me. Even now, in the middle of this nightmare, Harper was asking for me. No, honey, but Miss Jasmine is the one who called us. She was worried about you. She wanted to make sure you were safe. She called you? Yes, sweetheart, because she cares about you very much. A pause, then. Am I safe now? Officer Chen's voice was gentle. Yes, honey. You're safe now. Can you come with us? We need to ask you some questions, and then we're going to take you somewhere safe while we figure everything out. What about Chloe? Harper's voice was stronger now. Is my sister okay? Your sister is fine. She's not in any trouble. This is just about making sure you're okay. More commotion. Victoria's voice rising to a scream. Where are you taking my daughter? You can't just take her. Raymond, do something. Mrs. Brennan, please calm down. Calm down. You're taking my child, and you want me to calm down. Raymond's voice cut through the chaos, cold and sharp. Victoria, be quiet. Don't say anything else. Officers, I want to speak with my lawyer before any further action is taken. You're welcome to call your lawyer, Mr. Brennan. In fact, I'd recommend it. You're going to need one. The transmission went quiet for a moment. Then Officer Chen's voice came through clearly. Detective Morris, this is Chen. We have the minor child, Harper Brennan, in protective custody. Visible signs of distress and possible physical trauma. Requesting immediate medical evaluation. Detective Morris picked up his radio. Copy that. Transport to County Medical for forensic examination. I'll meet you there. He turned to me. Ms. Washington, Harper's been removed from the home. She's going to the hospital for an examination, then to a temporary foster placement while the investigation proceeds. And Raymond? He's being brought in for questioning. Based on what we're hearing from Harper and what you've documented, I expect he'll be arrested tonight. Relief and grief hit me simultaneously. Harper was safe, but the price of that safety, the examination she'd have to endure, the questions she'd have to answer, the trauma of being removed from her home, it was almost too much to bear. Can I see her? I asked. Can I talk to her? Detective Morris shook his head. Not yet. She's evidence in an active investigation. But eventually, yes. You'll likely be called as a witness when this goes to trial. Trial. The word hung in the air between us. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. Raymond Brennan was arrested at 11:43 p.m. that night. I wasn't there to see it, but Detective Morris called me the next morning to tell me. Multiple counts of child sexual abuse, possession of child exploitation material, endangering the welfare of a child. The list went on. He'd made bail by noon the next day, $500,000 paid by his parents. But the damage was done. His reputation was destroyed. His job was gone. And most importantly, he was forbidden from having any contact with Harper or Chloe. The story made the local news within 48 hours. Prominent pharmaceutical executive arrested on child abuse charges. I watched the broadcast from my living room, my daughters on either side of me, as reporters stood outside the Brennan house, describing the shocking allegations and the picture-perfect family torn apart by scandal. They got it wrong, of course. The family wasn't torn apart by scandal. It was torn apart by abuse that had been happening behind closed doors, while everyone looked the other way. Victoria filed for divorce within a week. Her lawyer released a statement saying she had no knowledge of her husband's actions and was cooperating fully with the investigation. I didn't know if that was true or not. Part of me wanted to believe she really hadn't known. The other part couldn't forgive her willful blindness. I never got my job back, obviously, but I didn't want it. How could I ever walk through that house again? Money got tight. Real tight. I picked up extra shifts at 2 other houses, working 6 days a week just to keep up with bills. My daughters helped where they could. Keisha took on more hours at her campus job. Destiny started tutoring kids in the neighborhood. We're proud of you, Mama, Keisha told me one night when I was crying over unpaid bills. You did the right thing, even when it was hard. That's what you taught us. That's who you are. Raymond's trial was set for 6 months out. His lawyers fought every step of the way, trying to get evidence thrown out, trying to discredit my testimony, trying to paint Harper as a confused child influenced by a vindictive employee. But the evidence was too strong. The photographs, the medical examination that confirmed Harper had been abused, and most damning of all, Harper's own testimony. I was there the day she gave her deposition. I wasn't allowed in the room, but I waited outside with a victim advocate. When Harper emerged 2 hours later, she looked exhausted, but also somehow lighter, like a burden had been lifted. She saw me in the hallway and ran straight into my arms. "Miss Jasmine," she sobbed into my shoulder. "I told them everything Daddy did. I wasn't brave like you, but I tried." I held her tight, my own tears falling into her blonde hair. "You were so brave, sweet girl. So brave. He can't hurt me anymore, right? They promised he can't hurt me anymore." "Never again," I whispered. "Never again." The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified on day 4, walking the jury through everything I'd witnessed and documented. Raymond's lawyers tried to tear me apart on cross-examination, suggesting I was motivated by revenge after being fired, implying I'd misinterpreted innocent father-daughter interactions, questioning why I'd waited so long to report if I truly believed abuse was occurring. That last question haunted me. Why had I waited? How many times had Harper suffered while I gathered evidence and wrestled with my conscience? But the prosecutor reminded me, and the jury, that my documentation had been crucial to building an airtight case. Without it, Raymond might have walked free. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Raymond Brennan was sentenced to 25 years in prison. He'll be 70 years old when he gets out. Harper will be a grown woman with a life he can never touch again. I saw Harper 3 months after the trial ended. She was living with Victoria's sister in another state, a fresh start away from all the memories and media attention. She'd started therapy, joined a new school, made friends who knew nothing about her past. She still looked fragile, still had that haunted quality in her eyes. But there were glimpses of the little girl I'd first met 3 years ago, moments where she'd laugh or get excited about something, and I'd see that spark returning. "It's going to take time," her therapist told me. "Years, probably. But Harper's resilient. She has a chance now. Because of you, she has a chance." I think about that often, about how close we came to Harper never getting that chance, about how many other children are suffering right now while the adults around them look away. People ask me sometimes if I regret making that call, if losing my job, facing Raymond's lawyers, dealing with the financial stress and public scrutiny was worth it. I show them a picture on my phone. It's from last month. Harper sent it to me, her and Chloe at the beach, building sandcastles, both girls laughing with pure, uncomplicated joy. "That's my answer," I tell them, "because here's what I've learned. Silence protects predators. Silence lets evil thrive in the darkness. Silence condemns children to suffer, while adults comfort themselves with denial. But one voice, just one person willing to speak up, to risk everything, to say, 'This is wrong, and I won't be quiet anymore can save a life. I was that voice for Harper. I wasn't perfect. I didn't act as quickly as I should have. I let fear and doubt paralyze me for longer than I'm proud of. But in the end, I chose courage over comfort. I chose Harper's safety over my own security. And that choice, terrifying and costly as it was, gave a little girl her life back. Sometimes I still wake up at night wondering what would have happened if I hadn't made that call. If I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. If I'd let Raymond's threats silence me. If I'd chosen to protect myself instead of Harper. I don't like to think about that alternative timeline, about where Harper would be now if I'd stayed silent. So instead, I think about that beach photo, about second chances and new beginnings, about a child who gets to grow up now, who gets to heal, who gets to have a future that isn't defined by what was done to her. That's why I did it. That's why it was worth it. And if I had to make the choice again, knowing everything it would cost me, I'd make the same decision in a heartbeat. Because some things are more important than paychecks and security and keeping your head down. Some things are worth fighting for, even when you're scared. Especially when you're scared. That's the lesson Harper taught me. That's the lesson I hope stays with everyone who hears this story. Speak up. Stand up. Be brave. You might be the only voice that child has.